is this White House going to fight this? If in fact, 24 hours from now, that discharge petition signed, how much pressure is going to be brought to bear on the House on the vote?
There's going to be tremendous pressure, and that is because I believe 50 to 60 Republicans could break, and that would be the first day of Donald Trump being a lame duck. Look, this is about our politics. Are we going to be for the forgotten class of Americans or for the Epstein class? And Donald Trump suddenly is going to be part of the swamp protecting the Epstein class, and he's going to have a chunk of the MAGA base with every Democrat saying we're for working class Americans, forgotten Americans. That's why they are so fearful of this vote.
And joining us now is Democratic Congresswoman-elect Adelita Grijalva of Arizona in what is likely her last primetime interview before she finally takes office.
Congresswoman-elect, thank you for joining us. I guess my first question is, are you sure you're going to make it to be sworn in tomorrow? And I say that in jest, but in also all seriousness. You are not here with us at the table. We are down the street from the Capitol. You are still in district. And given the catastrophic situation with flight delays and cancellations in this country and manufacturer crisis by the Secretary of Transportation, I would add, are you sure you're going to be here tomorrow?
I hope so. I mean, we're catching a red eye, and then if something happens to that flight, we have 5 or 6 options to get us there from Phoenix. I drove to Phoenix in order to have a more direct opportunity, bigger hub, because some of the flights that have been getting canceled here locally are those shorter ones. So I'm confident that we'll get there.
Congresspeople-elect, they're just like us.
Yes, they're just like us. And I would say, Congresswoman-elect Grijalva, I mean, you have had one of the most historic waits in American history. One that I think is fair to say very undemocratic. Your constituents have been kept without a representative way longer than they should have been. But you are also now defined by being the 218th vote on this discharge petition in regards to releasing the Jeffrey Epstein files. I covered Capitol Hill for 8 years, a discharge position, a little bit of the parliamentary procedure. If someone puts it out there, it lives for about 7 days. If you get the 218 signatures, then the Speaker of the House is pretty much forced to move it on discharge days and whatnot. It gets a little wonky, so I won't go totally into that. But are you looking forward to that being your sort of first measure of business at this historic legislation if those 4 Republicans stay on board?
Yeah, I feel it's really important for the survivors to finally have justice, and for those who are implicated in the files that they have their day in court. I mean, I think that's very important, and that transparency is important for the American people. That was something that Trump promised, right? When he was running for office, day one, I'm going to release those files. And then I think he got a big gander at what was actually in there and thought better of it. And it's very important that the survivors have that justice.
Has leadership spoken to you about how the schedule will play out for that?
No. What we have is through Leader Jeffries and Minority Whip Clark, just a rundown of this is the time you need to be in this area. As you know, I still cannot get into the Capitol without getting escorted in. And so I have to time that, but I plan on being there at about 3:30 D.C. time in order to be ready to go.
Congresswoman-elect, it feels like this particular Congress, under the leadership of Mike Johnson, has lost a sense of urgency for justice, for the rule of law, for procedure, a sense of urgency that is due to your constituents who elected you literally weeks ago. And it is not lost on me that the fact that you have not been seated is intentional. We just had Congressman James Walkinshaw here on the show, who is a Democrat who was quickly sworn in after he was elected in a special election. There are Republican elected officials who had special elections this year and were quickly sworn in. But they have played politics with you. And I just don't think we should lose sight of that.
Oh, thank you. I don't think we should either. This is unprecedented. It's undemocratic, it's unconstitutional, it's illegal. No member-elect should ever be in this situation again, where 813,000 people are silenced because one person wants to play politics with, their swearing in. There was no reason I should be in this position. We had several pro forma sessions. There have been entire freshman class that were sworn in during a shutdown.
One thing that happened, I asked President Trump in the Oval Office about those criticisms of his administration from Marjorie Taylor Greene. We are now in the middle of witnessing a major blow up between the two of them. One that a lot of people probably predicted would or did not expect would ever happen, with the president attacking her and her now calling the president, saying that he is lying about her and that she believes this is all over him trying to bully other Republicans into not voting in favor of that discharge petition on the Epstein files this week. I wonder what you make of what's playing out.
It's like they put truth serum in the MAGA water cooler, and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Donald Trump are both condemned to tell the truth about the other. Everything each says is right. They are narcissists. Marjorie Taylor Greene is right that Donald Trump has no domestic agenda except to harm ordinary people, and Donald Trump is right that Marjorie Taylor Greene is crazy. So it's useful information all around. But what I worry most about this and the Epstein files and all the things that Trump has tried to keep control of, escaping his control, is he has one big distraction in his hand, and I fear he may be about to deploy it. We are seeing in the Caribbean right now the largest buildup of U.S. naval forces in the region since the Cuban Missile Crisis. There's no plan. There's no authorization by Congress. There are no regional partners. It is not a war that should be fought in this way at this time. But one thing it would do is change the subject.
So you're worried that he could take action on a foreign policy move to distract from what's happening in Washington?
Yeah. I think that explains a lot of his foreign policy operations, but the forces are there. They've been pulled away from other theaters where they might be needed. They're building up to something. Again, they have no authorization. They have no allies. They have no goals. But boy, would it change the subject. And boy, does Donald Trump right now need a subject change.
Yeah, and we've seen what's been playing out. Obviously, the president was saying tonight he didn't know if he'd take that step. He wasn't sure. We know he's been briefed on options there. But on this, in and of itself, do you think that that is the reason he's criticizing Marjorie Taylor Greene, though, is because he doesn't want other Republicans coming out in what, we've told could be a huge snowball effect next week when Speaker Mike Johnson actually puts this on the floor, that a lot of Republicans could end up bucking the White House and voting for this?
I think he genuinely can't help himself. I don't know that Donald Trump has fully formed strategic plans. He has a lot of impulses. He's also testing the old magic. After one of the things that has happened after the elections in New Jersey and Virginia and elsewhere, and Georgia maybe most significantly, because there was an all-state race that Republican candidates lost, is a lot of Republicans have to be thinking, what about my future? I used to think the greatest hazard to my future might be that Donald Trump would criticize me, but maybe actually now he can't help me and might even hurt me. And that's a little bit of discipline lost. And Marjorie Taylor Greene may be the test case where a lot of less inflammatory Republicans are saying, if she gets away with this, we can all get away with it.
Yeah, and she's obviously someone who has been a huge advocate of his and very loyal to the president, especially after January 6th when everything happened. And obviously, no one can forget Biden's...
She's not a good actor. I mean, she's not a hero of the Republic, but she is somebody who may be just crazy enough to actually believe the things that Donald Trump says without believing them.
So a lot has happened tonight. Buckle up. Marjorie Taylor Greene is learning what it feels like to be on Trump's bad side. She has been one of the most vocal Republicans calling for the full release of the Justice Department's investigative files on Jeffrey Epstein. And now President Trump tonight is unendorsing. He is withdrawing his endorsement of Marjorie Taylor Greene and writing on Truth Social that all I see wacky Marjorie do is complain, complain, complain. And then he added that I can't take a ranting lunatic's call every day. There was a lot there. So you can go and then talk about a lot. Then MTG fired back with screenshots of text messages that she claims where she claims that Trump is lying and that she did not call him, also saying that it is astonishing, really, how hard he is fighting to stop the Epstein files from coming out. She argued that she has been one of Trump's strongest supporters, but that she doesn't, quote, worship or serve Donald Trump. On top of unendorsing, he actually said that he would support anyone who would be primarying her in the upcoming election. Who wants to take this one on?
Well, I can tell you that is not unusual in politics. Political romances are often short-lived, And she has been critical of him not only about the Epstein files, but about his involvement in foreign affairs. And I don't mean with women, I mean in various parts of the world.
You said it, no.
Just to clear the table on that one. and so it's not surprising that they have had a breakup of sorts after all. He didn't give her a ring. He just supported her for a little while.
Listen, this fire is spreading. I mean, right, it started off talking about Epstein in the beginning. Then during the shutdown, she was one of the few Republicans to correctly identify Donald Trump's unwillingness to deal with the ACA subsidies and lower healthcare costs for Americans as being one of the reasons why the shutdown occurred.
Yeah, she was very outspoken about that.
Now she's talking about foreign policy. This is not going away. Whatever is going on between them seems to only be heating up, and I think the rest of us should get the popcorn.
I think
They're here for it.
And a war with words, sorry, Scott, a war with words with Donald Trump is such a risky business that I cannot believe she has the bravery to engage in it, because even if she was right, she's still going to lose.
Is there an example of anyone beating Donald Trump at this game?
Never. This is his game, and he's great at it. And she's barking up a tree that she's going to fall on her really hard.
You know, it's interesting. He has some people who profess to be strong supporters who do oppose him more often than the people that you might not think are his strongest supporters. She's one of them. Thomas Massie in Kentucky is another one. Rand Paul, my home state senator, he takes on Trump, although they profess to be Trump supporters. In this case, I think he had the order out of order. I trace all this back to his decision, the righteous decision to strike Iran. She was against it. So were some of the people who occupy that wing of the party. He defied them. And since that time, they all seem to be stridently picking at him on this issue or that. And then, of course, everybody knows in Washington, Miles, you know, the fastest way to get in front of a television camera if you're a Republican is to come out and crap on Donald Trump. And so that is what she is doing.
But, you know, Scott,
that is what she is doing.
I trace it back further than that, Scott.
Over these issues, and that's what happened.
Scott, I trace it further back than that. I trace it back to 10 years ago when you said Donald Trump was an authoritarian. And you know what, Scott, I've got to hand it to you. That was a remarkable forecast. Because 10 years later, I think you called it. Here's Donald Trump today, the man with the heart and soul of a fascist, showing us he now has the bona fides. By tonight, ordering investigations into American citizens. That's why members of his party, that's why members of his
running the executive branch. Why are you so upset he's running the executive branch?
For the same reasons you predicted he shouldn't. For the same reasons, Scott, you said he violated his oath and he should never be back in that office.
I happily voted
That's why I'm upset for the man being in the Oval Office.
I happily voted for him 3 times.
I know that.
The alternative was terrible.
And a lot of your friends were shocked.
Yeah, well, a lot of my friends would have been shocked at you trying to subvert the elected president of the United States, which you did.
Well, I proudly did. I proudly
Some
said
mid-level
to the
staffer
country
substituting his judgment for the elected president of the United States.
Well, Scott, I would have loved to have seen you stand up to it.
Good luck.
Back to MTG. Is it the sign of a changing tide? Is it the sign, or is it a singular one back and forth between one Republican who is getting into a fight with Donald Trump? Or do you think there is a possibility that it is the beginnings of Republicans seeing past the Donald Trump era?
Joining us now, Democratic Congressman Robert Garcia of California. He sits on the House Transportation Committee. He also serves as ranking member of the Oversight Committee. Congressman, it's great to have you back on the show. Thanks for making time for us. So your district near one of the busiest airports in this country, LAX, of course, in Los Angeles. What are you hearing from your constituents? What is this delay, if you will, or these cancellations doing to disrupting travel, to commerce, to people wanting to get home ahead of the holidays? What are you hearing from your constituents about how painful this is and why Republicans are doing this?
There's 2 main things here. I think one, which is really important, is that there's a real impact. I mean, there are flights being canceled, being delayed. People across the country are being stranded, and we expect this to actually worsen in the days and the week ahead. It is a serious issue that Donald Trump appears to not really care about or have any really intention of trying to solve and work with us on. The second thing that I'm hearing, also very clear from folks on the ground, is they support and understand that we are in this fight right now because we want to ensure that people's healthcare costs don't skyrocket. Republicans could be calling us into session right now. Mike Johnson has had the House on vacation for over a month. We know that at this moment, what we're saying is stop the tax breaks to billionaires and large corporations, and let's actually ensure that healthcare doesn't become out of reach for millions of people in this country. And so people on the ground that I'm talking to are saying, keep fighting. And why the hell has Donald Trump and Mike Johnson and John Thune not reopened the government?
Congressman, I just want to know what you're doing with your days. You aren't doing a ton of, I mean, obviously you're talking to constituents. I don't see a ton of congressional town halls. It seems like we just have a lot of underemployed politicians roaming the nation. Like, when is this going to end? I mean, it's the longest shutdown in history. And Ted Cruz had said, oh, after the election, maybe on Wednesday, Thursday. But do you see any signs of hope? Because this has just gotten to be ridiculous.
It's completely ridiculous. Well, I've actually been in D.C. for a lot of the time. So there's been a lot of Democrats in D.C. since the shutdown actually started on most weeks. And I've been here the last few days here in California. We actually had the big election with Prop 50. I was engaged in doing that. That's incredibly important for the future of the country, which was our redistricting measure. But we're meeting with constituents. I've been talking to union folks on the ground. I've been visiting with constituents. We're doing what we can. I've been also talking to a lot of folks that are dependent on their health care. And I was talking just yesterday to a few folks that can't afford for their healthcare premiums to go up. People are starting to get letters in the mail saying their healthcare costs are going to skyrocket. And so what people need to understand right now is that Democrats are saying no more tax breaks to billionaires, no more giveaways to the top 1%. We're in this fight because people deserve affordability. They need to be able to pay their rent, have access to food, and pay for their health care.
So, Congressman, as time keeps ticking on here, the president is ramping up pressure on Republicans to consider ending the filibuster. I know a lot of your Republican colleagues are not comfortable with that, but where do you see that going? Do you think some of them may fold and then do that? And if so, what would Democrats do with that when it's their turn?
Well, look, a universe where Democrats have the House and the Senate and the presidency, which is a possibility in 2028. That obviously, I think we use that as best that we can. I'm not sure that Republicans are going to actually get rid of the filibuster. I don't think there's a lot of excitement with John Thune on doing that. I think the more important thing is that they actually work to actually put together a deal to reopen the government. They have not actually even wanted to negotiate with us. And I think that's one of the big concerns. Put together a deal. Let's actually negotiate. Let's move the country forward and reopen the government.
And, you know, it seems like Trump, Thune, and Johnson's calculus is backfiring at the moment, right? They had banked on Democrats folding under pressure and public sentiment. And that is not what we are seeing. And in my conversations with several Democrats this week, the party is feeling just even more emboldened to continue holding out and forcing Republicans' hand to negotiate the extension of the Obamacare subsidies in some way, whether it's 1 year, 2 years. There's a bunch of different working groups going on right now. But can you give us a vibe check? Where do you stand? Where do most of your colleagues stand? And do you think that Democrats are getting to a point where potentially this is becoming harmful for the party, or is this all on Republicans?
No, we want to work. So first and foremost, like, our default is, like, we show up every week and they don't, and we want to work. We would love to find a deal so that we can pay federal workers, you know, feed the hungry immediately and bring down insurance costs. But we are not going to just roll over and continue the madness of this government and fund the madness of this government if it means jacking up the health insurance prices for Americans as we are in open enrollment right now, where most people receive their health care. And it also feels a little bit, which is frustrating, but we'll do it, that we're giving them the answers to the test. It's like we're solving their problem.
Right.
They run
their political problem heading into
next year. And we're solving their political problem. And these are, frankly, many of their voters. We're doing it because we think everyone should have affordable, accessible health care, but we're solving their problem.
If the Senate passes a continuing resolution and the government reopens, will Speaker Johnson actually reconvene the House? Because that would force him to swear in Congresswoman-elect Adelita Grijalva. And back to conventional wisdom, without her in the House, that's one less signature that can go on that Epstein petition.
And people are starving because of this, right? People are starving because he does not want to convene the House and have that 218th signature. People woke up this morning, many did not have breakfast, and they see that a government is still shut down and one party is concerned with protecting the president from the Epstein files and the other party is concerned with feeding people. So they've chosen the files, we've chosen the food, and we're ready to work. But you have to believe that that is one of the motivating factors. And I'll tell you, Republicans have texted me or told me at the Dunkin' Donuts line that they are happy with Johnson protecting them from taking this vote. But when this vote happens, they're voting to release the files. That's what their constituents want. And they can't protect the president anymore when they have to take a public, transparent vote.
What about a potential vote on extending Obamacare subsidies, right? Because Johnson has said that he is not going to do what Thune has promised Democrats, which is put something on the floor, ensure that there's at least a vote if Democrats vote to reopen the government. Johnson says he won't do that. He also says not only won't he do it, he doesn't have the votes. Is he right about that? What are you hearing from your Republican friends?
He has the votes. And first, Mike Fabrizio, if you really want to go in the weeds here, is a Trump pollster. He has circulated a memo to House Republicans that has told them, you're going to get creamed if you don't put these subsidies back in place. So they
talked
know.
about that poll before that actually came out during Trump's campaign.
Right. Yeah, so they know that this is a problem for them. We also know that Mike Johnson has it in him to put up a vote where a majority of his caucus votes against it, but it's the right thing. We saw him do this in the last Congress to keep government open. We saw him do this with Ukraine funding. So what's changed? Donald Trump is president. And so you feel like maybe he just doesn't have the decision-making ability to do this without Trump signing off. But we know he's able to do it. And I know that the votes are there because they've seen the warning signs that this is a real problem for them in the midterms.
And just a minor correction, Tony Fabrizio.
I said Tony Fabrizio.
You said Mike, but that's okay.
Brother Mike, yeah, right?
This is MSNBC headline from Friday. Supreme Court allows Trump administration to temporarily block SNAP benefits. I'm just wondering, what do you want Americans to understand about the Trump administration fighting to keep food aid away from them, especially when there is money, billions of dollars just sitting there that could be used to end this situation?
That's a hell of a hill to die on, right? That I'm going to let people starve. And it's easy for people who have food to debate whether people who don't have food should have it. But the reality is people are hungry now. We're in day 40 of this where people are not being fed. And as I said,
here's your script with only grammatical and spelling corrections applied. All meaning, tone, and structure are preserved exactly as in your original. Donald and MAGA Mike, Democrats, have trapped them, and they're basically saying it's time to impeach these SOBs. Throw them out, as they say. One of the headlines, I don't know if it was included in the clip, but in the original piece, Swalwell says it's time for people like MAGA Mike to get their LinkedIn profiles updated, because what they've done to Americans, their tariffs, their government shutdown, their carnage, all to pay for tax cuts for billionaires, has left millions of Americans struggling. Many are having to find new jobs, desperate to find new work so they don't starve because benefits have been cut, and probably forced to settle for a job that pays less than the one they had before because of the carnage caused by MAGA Mike and Donald. And what Democrats are doing successfully here is talking about class again. They're talking about class and inequality again. Biden got back to it. They left it again in 2024, which I think is one of the reasons they lost. Look at how Biden talked in his very successful 2020 campaign, where no human outside of India in world history got as many votes as Biden did in 2020. And what happened? Biden said, I'm the regular dude from Scranton. He's the creepy, corrupt billionaire from downtown New York. Who do you want? Do you want the out-of-touch, silver spoon in his mouth Donald Trump? Or do you want somebody with a working-class experience? And that worked. That approach worked. Donald couldn't respond to it, because what we are seeing right now is the epitome of the failure of the Republican Party. They are starving people to pay billionaires. They're taking your health care to pay billionaires. They're doing all of that not only to pay billionaires, but to hide a certain list of predominantly multimillionaires and billionaires, royal family members, and whatnot that they don't want you to see. Who knows what those rich and powerful men did on that island? But I know one thing, in addition to what they probably did on that island alongside Jeff and Ghislaine, I know they were also on that island talking about tax cuts for billionaires. In between all of the activities they were doing on that island, they were 100% talking about how they need to cut taxes on the rich, how we need to reward the exceptional. All of that's connected. And so, at this moment in history, Donald is associating himself, MAGA Mike, and the GOP not only with freakazoids, but also with the out-of-touch elite. Would you like me to make it slightly smoother for narration while keeping the tone and message identical?